For who knows what reason, it was the PFA Awards today. Mo Salah won the player...
Who knows what reason it was the awards today, or who knows what reason we're putting the graphic in?
Well, we put it in because it's a segue then to what Isak had to say. So this is the team of the year. We will not discuss it. But Isak, in thanking everyone for being part of the team, came out and said this: the reality is that promises were made and the club has known my position for a long time. To now act as if their issues are only emerging is misleading. When promises are broken and trust is lost, a relationship can't continue. That's where things are for me right now, and why change is in the best interest of everyone, not just myself. Don Hutchison, of course, the perfect guest to have on with his Newcastle ways, former pro ways as well, Don.
Well, he is a man that knows how to make a transfer.
Well, he hit 17.
He made enough of them.
OK, so reading between the lines is suggesting that Isak had been told by the club, if a big team comes in, we'll let you go. And obviously that has now happened, and they haven't. Is that fair?
I think that's fair, but I think the journalists up at Newcastle are more or less saying we've not heard from Newcastle, and they strongly deny what Alexander Isak's saying. So I would imagine what Alexander Isak's saying is correct, because I've been in that situation myself. There was loads of context to my story, but the worst thing he's done is refuse to play and train. There's a way to leave a football club. I mean, it seems like to me, because he's been so quiet now for the last couple of weeks, his agent's probably said to him tonight, listen, you're going to have to say something, because this move, what's it left, 12 days of the window? You're going to have to say something now to try and force the move, to try and engineer Newcastle accepting a lower bid from Liverpool, because they lowballed Newcastle for 110 million. That was never going to be the offer that Newcastle would accept. So Liverpool have been pretty naughty, I think, in this as well, expected to try and get him for 110 when they know they could go a lot higher, or going to have to walk away. So put your money up or shut up. But on Alexander Isak, as I said, Dan, just train, just play. I mean, he sent out a message tonight saying promises were broken. Well, what about all the Newcastle fans that bought all the Alexander Isak shirts and spent all the money going down to Aston Villa at the weekend and he wasn't there? And they turned out in their droves and they loved him and he loved them. It's getting to a point now where he's desperate because, as I said, he's got no cards left to play. So his agent probably said to him, you're going to have to say something, otherwise this deal might collapse.
Those shots are all burnt now, aren't they? I mean, I can't go on with this show, Don, till I find out what you combed your hair with today. You're looking a bit windswept.
I just had a quick shower.
Yours isn't the best today either, to be fair.
Nothing too drastic.
Mine's not the best
No,
today.
it's quite...
Mine's becoming a bit of a problem.
Only now?
I must admit.
See, Dan, very quickly. Very quickly. I had this scenario. I've just answered a few tweets, so I'll tell you very quickly because it's a long-winded story. But a Sunderland fan got in touch tonight and said, you've done exactly the same when you left Sunderland to go to West Ham. And in a way, he's sort of right, but there was context to the story. So my context to my story was, before I signed for Sunderland, which I was always going to do, I went to see Gordon Strachan at Coventry, and he was going to make me highest paid player, captain's armband. Alan Kirbishley said the same thing down at Charlton. Went to spoke to Brian Robson and Keith Lambert at Middlesbrough, but I always wanted to sign for Sunderland. Now, a lad from Newcastle who didn't earn a lot of money in his career, I lost £2 million to sign for Sunderland Football Club because I wanted to play for Sunderland and I wanted to go back home and I wanted to see my mum and dad. My mum wasn't particularly too well and I wanted to live in Durham. So I was quite happy giving up the money. But I done what Alexander Isak's probably done as well, is I shook the hands of Bob Murray, who was the chairman and the chief executive, and I said, in the first year, if I do well, can we look at my contract? I had the best season of my life. So I went back in, they flat refused, said, no, we're not going to do it, Then Rangers and West Ham came in, and I moved. So it's a little bit similar, but I played the first game of the Premier League down at Fulham. I never refused to train, I never refused to play. I didn't keep quiet, I just let my agent and everyone get on with it, and I wanted to stay, but things had moved south where I had to sort of move in the end, but there's context to it. What I don't get is, why is he not training? Why is he not helping his teammates? It's a poor look. It's a sour look. It's a desperate move from him.
He said, before we came on air, Dan said you'd make that about yourself.
No, it's just because I think the Sunderland fans asked the question and I had to answer it because it was too long-winded to try and give them an explanation. So things like that do happen. I see Stan Collymore tonight. He's getting a bit of abuse as well because when he moved from Forest to Liverpool, they're saying he engineered a move. You've probably been in the same boat as well, Craig. It happens, but I dare say you've never refused to train or play.
Well, everybody gets abused by you. There's no point in getting involved with these people. The story here is Alexander Isak. Look, maybe the answer, because clubs make promises, and as it said in the graph, promises can be broken and people change their minds. It's a business. Maybe his advisors could have did a better job with a release clause, which is sort of black and white. Because sometimes clubs change their position. Maybe Newcastle did make a... Listen, I don't know. I'll take him at his word. That's fine. But maybe they can't... Maybe the promise was, if we'll let you go if a club comes in, but we need to have a plan B, and maybe they don't have the plan B that they wanted. Sesko has gone to Man United. Yeah. So that changes the narrative of... And sometimes clubs will come along and say to you, look, I know we said, but we need another 6 months or a year because our alternative is not available. And a lot of players, will agree to that. But clearly, and Don mentioned it, that what this player has done has just taken himself out of the equation. And he's made himself look very, very unprofessional. And I don't think that is helping the scenario. Certainly not amongst the fans. If he's got to go back and play and this deal does not come off, he's going to get an absolute shellacking, home and away.
Till he scores a hat-trick.
Well... Yeah, I don't know if you'll ever... I don't know from this scenario if you ever...
Yeah, that's obviously my next question is, has this statement now burnt all the bridges?
Yeah.
Do you think so? He'll never play for Newcastle again?
I don't think there was much left of the bridge.
Yeah.
No, I mean, if he doesn't make this move to Liverpool and the transfer window closes, they will have to play him.
But it's him. Does he have to play?
He has to play.
Will he choose to
contractually,
play?
He can't do that.
Has to.
He has to. I mean, we're now getting into a very legal minefield because...
Yeah, but we've seen players in the past not play, haven't we? And force...
Yeah, you can choose not to play, but you're breaking your contract. Then the club, technically, I believe, don't have to pay you. They're not going to let him go. They're not going to sack him for an egregious offence like that because the value of the player. So he's an asset for them. Whether we get to that scenario, I mean, I want one story. And this is back in the day, Pierre Van Hooijdonk, if you remember, back in the late 90s, went on strike at Nottingham Forest and basically just disappeared. But it was only for a shortish amount of time. I can't remember off the top of my head. But I think he came back and played or whatever it was. So it has happened. It just doesn't happen very often. And I don't think it will from this player. I just feel now we're at that stage where...
Van Dijk?
Did he do it?
Southampton? Forced that move, didn't he? And it worked out for him.
I don't like when this happens, but I think we're at the stage now where the relationship between player, club, manager, supporters has become so poisonous that the best thing to do here for Newcastle is get as much money as they can and move the player on. Now, that's the player getting what he wants, and I understand that. But this is a very difficult situation that you do see. I mean, Gyökeres, got his move to Arsenal. In some sense, he forced it, didn't he, from Sporting Lisbon? But if you saw some of the quotes from the Sporting Lisbon owner, it was almost like he was going to dig his heels in because of it. In the end, he didn't, and they got what they wanted. So I don't know. It's a very, very ugly situation.
What do you think, Dom? Will we see Isak ever play for Newcastle again?
I still think there's hope. I think Craig's right. They have to sell him. They've got to try and get as much money as they can. But what if Liverpool turn around and say, 120 is our final offer? What do Newcastle do then? Because they value him at 140, 150. So essentially, they're going to have to come up and do something and probably take a hit on the 140. They probably won't sort of reach that number. But I think what Alexander Isak's claiming from a few journalists that I've spoke to is the former owner and then Amanda Staveley, when they were at the football club, they promised Alexander Isak a new contract when they were there, which was, I think, just under a year ago. So he's been adamant he was getting the new contract. Then the owner moves on, Amanda Staveley moves on. There's no sporting director. So he then can't sort of say to anyone, listen, guys, you promised me this new contract, but the owner, Amanda Staveley's not there anymore. This is what I'm hearing from the journalists. This is where his angst comes from. But there has to be a solution. And I think Liverpool need to do more to try and find the number that Newcastle will accept. Because at the end of the day, Newcastle, I feel sorry for Eddie Howe in this. I said this a couple of days back. He's the one that's trying to prepare his team for a tough away trip against Villa. Now they got a point. But this can't carry on. Otherwise, you're just going to have to keep fining him for breach of contract every couple of weeks. And it could be a Van Hooijdonk situation where he might be away for 2 or 3 months. Now, that surely can't happen. So 12 days left of the window. All my senses say he will move to Liverpool. But if Newcastle don't get the 2 centre-forwards that they want and Liverpool don't pay the money, then he will stay.
I mean, Eddie Howe's getting screwed, you're right. But that's where sometimes I think you're better just to do this business earlier in the season, even if the money isn't quite at the limit that you want.
Yeah.
Because now you might get the extra 10 million or 20 million that you want for the player. But as a football club, as a manager and as a squad, what kind of position does that leave you in with the season already started?
Suppose they were thinking, right, if we can bring in Ekitike, if we bring in Sesko, at least then we've got a platform to build on. That hasn't happened. They delayed the Isak deal, and now we're at this stage.
And it's, you know, I feel like we've talked about him a lot, Alexander Isak. And look, he may or may not get his move to Liverpool, but I can tell you now, we all do things during a career. You think, man, maybe I shouldn't have done that. And this is going to be certainly one of those moments for him, because he's had, and when you leave a club, sometimes you leave in good terms and bad terms, but usually it's, you know, you've played well or you've played badly, and the fans sort of accept it. You do feel here's a player who has performed really well for Newcastle, who is has been a class act on the field, but yet, you know, the way that he is treating this scenario, when he leaves, and it looks like he will, he's leaving with such a bad taste in everybody's mouth, and it's all most of it's particularly come from him.
Craig.
Yeah.
Craig, I tell you the one thing I would do, having seen everything that's happened over the last 14 days, if I was Isak, I'd sack my agent. His agent's been horrendous in this. His agent has just sat back. He's thinking about the money to Liverpool, the move to Liverpool. He's offered his player the worst advice ever. If he's told his player, because he would have done, he'd have said to his player, don't train, don't play, force Newcastle's hand. I would seriously sack my agent off the back of this.
Here's the deal now. When players were getting paid less money, and the game has changed, I understand. When players were getting paid less money, you did not have the luxury of potentially losing a month, 2 months, or 3 months' wages if you go on strike or you refuse to play. The trouble is now, these players, the majority of them, have accumulated such small fortunes that, and they're getting paid astronomical amounts of money, that they can almost hold the club to ransom. And the club say, well, we're going to fine you a month's wages. We're going to fine you 2 months and 3 months until you play or train. And a lot of players now can just sit back and absorb that. And that's the problem when you're paying people obscene amounts of money. The power then switches from the club, to a certain extent, to a player and the agent because of the vast sums of money involved.
The reason, of course, he made this statement was that he was named in the best 11 from last season.
Why didn't they do it at the end of the year?
I don't know, Craig. Salah won it. He's won it before. Here's a list of multiple winners. There you go. He's won it 3 times now.
Can't we see the team again? It's very exciting.
We're not doing the team. We've done enough. There we go. Shearer, Hughes, Henry, Ronaldo. It's not a bad list, is it? When it comes to top Premier League players. Do we have to talk about this? Oh, yeah. Don?
Don, there you go.
He broke the record, hasn't he?
He's broke the record. Well done.
I mean,
last season.
There you go.